And
how many of these?
hello. 3 or 4? Three's probably fine. They lack survival skills,
At least
and they dump crucial supplies, and then they starve. Most of them die, and then he gets whipped mercilessly, and then everyone gets drowned apart from him, and then he kills someone.
What are you describing, Katie?
Very horrible.
Yeah, I'm explaining why The Call of the Wild is not a family-friendly movie. It's a really brutal story about torture.
It doesn't sound very story-timey. Definitely not.
Hmm?
It doesn't sound very story-timey, no.
It's not very story time.
Hi, Jenny. How are you?
Hi. Just 1 second. I can't hear you. Something's wrong.
Shall I keep saying things until you can hear me?
That sounds like a Jenny.
I like your hair, Jenny. Have you had it dyed? Or is it always that colour? And I've just not noticed.
Now I can hear you. Okay.
Hi, Jenny.
Have you dyed your hair, Jenny? That's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Should we all turn redhead?
Definitely a theme going on. Yeah.
Be cool.
Oh.
Hey, Nick.
Hey. You're silent, Frankie. I'm not sure why we can't hear you.
Hello?
There you are. You're back.
Oh, it's because you're not talking.
Back in the room.
I'm back in the room. I'm back in the room, everyone. Hold on, my thing is wilting.
Steady on.
Nick and Katie, that's very
Interpretive dance.
exciting. What's happening there? You look like you're having a lovely time.
Hello, beautiful humans.
Hi. How you doing?
How are you?
We're making hot chocolate
Oh.
with obscene amounts of whipped cream if the cream hasn't gone off.
Are you winning at life?
No, but I am definitely winning at food.
Same thing, right? I see no difference. Also, hello everybody.
Hey, Carmen's here. Yay!
Hey. Hi Carmen. Hi Gordon. Hi Yvonne. Hi Jenny. Hi Ryan. Hi Kate. How is everybody today?
I'm sick. That's why I'm here, because I don't have to get up in the morning to go to work.
Oh, Jenny, you're sick, did you say?
Yeah, I'm waiting for my corona results, which I'll get tomorrow.
Oh, all of the crossables, crossables crossed.
I mean, it's highly unlikely. It's probably just a summer flu, but yeah.
My corona.
Nick, are you drunk?
Drunk. I'm just drunk on life, Frank.
The best thing to be drunk on.
How much whipped cream would you like, Nick?
More.
Like lots or
Lots.
really lots?
He wants lots.
Just lots.
Just lots.
You're more of a whipped cream person.
Slightly too lots.
So I can have more than half?
No.
Oh, Jenny. Oh, here, have one of these.
But that means I can join you guys for a while, because I don't have to get up in the morning.
Yay!
Silver linings.
I'm glad you're sick. Not glad you're sick, but I'm glad that you can join us.
Someone took a cute picture of me.
No.
Oh, very cute. That's painfully cute. Also, your hair is just looking amazing. Why is your hair looking so good?
It is this wonderful product, which I use very occasionally. And it smells brilliant. And you put it on your hair and it makes it beautiful.
Oh, no, I dropped the teaspoon in the pan.
It's okay. Get another teaspoon and pull the teaspoon out of the pan with the other teaspoon.
We can do this. Gordon, how was your brunch? Gordon went to see humans today.
Oh my God, humans are amazing. I also saw a cat and a dog. I know, it was quite overwhelming.
My
And we
God.
sat and chatted like in real life. So weird, but it was great.
So who was that and where was that?
It was up in a place called Port Rann, which is in North Dublin. So I drove out in a car and went on a little like doot, 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 through a tunnel and everything. It was great. And then sat outside having socially distant brunch, and it was great. And I want more of that, please, because I had forgotten that actually being around physical people in a relaxed environment is fun. Like, I mean, when it's not stressful, i.e. when you're not walking or inside, but when you're outside, it's great. So I want more, please.
We should
And
definitely have more of that.
there was when we were chatting, there was an idea which I had not thought of, but I like it, which is during times of where the normal things that you might look forward to are no longer available, that it's really useful to have a new thing every so often, like something that you haven't done before in these endless days of, oh, I've done this already. Just like, do you know what? I'm going to do something completely different and strange once every couple of weeks, just to mark it as a, look, I've done, remember that time I, whatever, walked into the sea, or, you know, tried to do a handstand and fell over. Just something that's different enough to sort of go, oh, the, you know, routine is really good.
Yeah.
Time marking is also good.
That sounds very sensible and fun.
I like it. So I'm going to start thinking of things to do. And I encourage everyone to think of strange things to do to mark that.
How exciting. How are you, Carmen, my dear?
I'm just a bit tired. I've been back to
Oh.
work the last couple of weeks.
Oh,
I mean, it has been lovely in one way, because I've seen some of my children. I work in a nursery. But also I wasn't able to cuddle all of them.
oh,
Only a small group of them.
oh.
So that was painful.
How did you choose which ones to cuddle? And which ones you
I didn't
cuddle?
choose. I was
Okay.
given a group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I'm really, really tired. It's been really nice to see them. But I don't want to work. I don't want to have to work. I would work 2 days a week. 2 days a week I can do. More than that is too much.
Definitely. Oh, I'm sorry you're tired, sweetie. It's lovely to see your lovely face anyway.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. This is going to be a nice chill out time before going to sleep.
Oh my God. Okay, 1. Hi, Em. Hi, Em. 2. Is that Mike and Pontouf?
Mike's birthday.
What?
It's Mike's birthday.
Mike.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday! Also, hi, Andrada.
Thanks, Katie, so much for sneaking in.
No.
Sorry, did you want to sneak? I can stop. I can stop directing things.
Yeah, just rewind and everyone forget.
Okay.
the
Hi, Hi. Oh, and Andrada's here. Hi, Andrada.
Hi.
Got you.
Katie muted. What are you holding up?
This is the book which Andrada recommended and I bought.
Ooh.
And I can confirm it is excellent.
Yay.
What's it? Oh, yes. I remember you recommending that one.
It has black pages.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, not black on the inside, obviously, but still.
That's very
White
cool.
pages with white writing.
Not very warm.
I've got a book somewhere with black pages called The Book of Human Skin. I remember relatively little about it, other than it wasn't very good, but I liked the black pages.
I've heard a rumor that the black pages, if you have a book with black pages, it's to remind you that time passes very quickly, and that every so often you should think to yourself, what time is it?
Jesus, Gordon.
You should
Is it?
do that. Wait, what time is it?
What time
Is it story time?
Gordon, you minx.
Nice segue.
Nice segue.
I want to know what happens next.
Ooh, can we have a recap of last time? It's been a couple days. I'm trying
Sure.
to remember where we stopped off. Magic
Okay.
spinning, visions, floods.
I can do this. So I will do a quick recap and then we shall begin. Our unnamed protagonist had gone off to the craft hall and had spun and had fallen into a trance, and she had seen her sister tending her shrine, and she was all like, oh my god, like now my sister will be mine forever, but also is that a good thing? And then Lomelkeen was like, tell me about your sister. And she was all, she's gonna be married like now, yeah, for sure. And I think that's about where we got to.
Sounds about right. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's such a good summary.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Hey, Lisa.
Okay. Okay, now. Right. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Eight. On the seventh morning, an old woman brought my tea. She was not old the way the master weavers were, with their gnarled fingers and stooped shoulders, their white hair braided about their heads in that simple coiled style of which I was so jealous. She was old like desert rock, bleached and hard, all the impurities worn away. And her hair, which hung loose about her face, was a tawny colour, the like of which I had never seen. It was her hair that gave her away. This was Lomelkeen's mother, who had been so ill and then was cured by him in the days after he came back from the desert. Her hair had not recovered as she had once her sickness was gone, and since no more of it ever grew, she had made for herself a wig out of the lion manes she loved so dearly. It could not be braided or oiled, and could no more be tamed than the beasts themselves. It was unearthly to look upon, so early in the morning with the golden sunlight around her, but it was beautiful nonetheless. I sat up and took the cup from her hand. I wondered if I ought to rise altogether and bow, but before I could move again, she took a seat amongst the cushions at the foot of my bed and tucked her feet beneath her, as though she were a daughter of shepherds herself. 7 nights, she said to me. I suppose I will not be able to avoid you for much longer. I wondered if she had thought to care at all for her sons' wives at the start, and learned to ignore them the way the rest of the casa seemed to. The women in the thread room still did not speak to me, though they spoke to themselves in louder and less cautious voices. At least they no longer looked so surprised when I appeared each morning, and no longer avoided my gaze when I told them I would see them the next day. It is my honour to meet you, I said. I did not know what to do, or even what to call her, so I drank my tea and prayed that I did not give offence. My son says that you are not afraid of him, she said to me. I had not known that they were on speaking terms. I did not know if she approved of his marriages. I did not know if she feared him. I do fear him, I said, which was close to the truth. I fear him as I fear the desert sun and poisonous snakes. They are all part of the life I live. But the sun gives light, and snakes will feed a caravan if they are caught and cooked. And under my son's rule, we have peace and prosperity, she said, her voice bitter. Her husband had not ruled well. And I have no escape from him, I agreed. She looked at me for a long time, and I finished my tea. I will tell you of my son, she said. Not the man he is now, for that you know as well as I do. But I will tell you what he was like when he was a boy, and what he was like when he learned to hunt. I wondered if she meant for me to pity him, but I remembered the others who had lived in this room before me, and my heart was not moved. Still, I had no other business today, and our father had always told my brothers that the best routes are the ones best known. I will hear you, I said. Come to the gardens when you are dressed, and we will speak, she said to me, and then she left, the wooden screen sliding shut behind her. The serving girls came in, breathless with excitement, though they did their best to keep their faces blank. Today, at last, my hair was coiled simply about my head, though they twisted it instead of braiding it, which looked better and was more difficult to secure. I thought I might have more pegs in my hair than held our father's tents to the sand by the time they were done. Then they led me to the garden, the one with the fountain I had seen on my first night, and I sat down next to Lomelkeen's mother. There was a basket of figs before us and a jug of sweet water. I am from the south, she said to me, where our desert is blue and looks like water, but will kill you if you drink it. Our father had told me of this, and my brothers had seen it too. It was their favourite tale to tell to me and my sister. A great blue and boundless desert that heaved under the wind and grew or shrank with the size of the moon. Creatures did live in it underneath the surface, like our burrowing snakes and insects, but if a man drank from it, he went mad and died, the same as if he had tried to drink sand. We have different animals there, she continued, and I remembered myself and paid attention. So when my lord came to marry me and brought me my first lion skin, I knew that I must follow him back to see the creature that had such glorious fur. I wondered what it must have been like to be unafraid of lions. When my sister and I first took up the herds, we were told how to kill jackals and hyenas. But, my brothers insisted, should a lioness come, she can take whatever sheep she likes. The males, I had learned when I was older, were different, but still vicious, particularly when they were alone. I loved him, though he was something of a fool, she said. He was kind and fair-minded. In better times, he would have made a fair ruler, but it was not to be. I grew ill, and whatever makes the water come to us from far away failed. The lords he trusted betrayed him and lined their own pockets instead of looking after their people in the towns and villages. And then my son was born. Lomelkeen had, I think, 10 more summers than I did. By the time I was born, we were accustomed to the hard times. My father travelled farther and was home less frequently. My mother and my sister's mother had learned to stretch every thread, every loaf, every cut of meat as far as they could. We did not starve, and neither did any in our father's tents, but in the towns they did not fare as smoothly. My son grew up hard, like the times, but with the kindness of his father's smile, she said. I knew that he would be a better lord than his father, and my husband knew it too. He spent hours ensuring that Lomelkeen had all the best teachers and weapons masters. If there was a craft my son wished to try his hand at, his father found him a craftmaster. But what he loved most of all was hunting, she said. He learned the desert secrets with the ease a hawk learns to fly. By the time he had 12 summers, he was already bringing home more meat than the Cass's huntsman, though the pickings were still lean in those times. He travelled far and wide, seeing more of the land and the desert than his father ever did, protected by his loyal guards wherever he went. I had heard of the guards of which she spoke. Their names were legend now, as his was. Fleetfoot and Farsight had not saved him from whatever it was the day he last went into the desert. His mother spoke fondly of them, though, so I did my best to control the emotions that would otherwise have rioted on my face. He took his first lion in his 16th summer, she said. The beast had been stealing sheep from a village close to the city, and there was a worry that it would soon develop a taste for children. My husband forbade Lomelkeen to go after it, but he made his guards take him out anyway, and 3 days later he returned with a fine pelt. After that, it was as though the beasts took to taunting him, she said, though I suppose they had no more game than we did and were forced to find the easy prey of sheep. And every time he rode out, he came home with a pelt. I loved them dearly. They were soft and they smelled of such wildness. I was fading then, breaking under the sun, and the lion skins my son brought to me were one of the few joys I still had. She carded her fingers through her wig as she spoke, smiling at the memory. And then he went out after one last pelt. The smile disappeared from her face. And you know what happened after that. We sat, listening to the fountain, and the sun climbed above us. My lady mother, I said at length, not thinking it odd that I should call her the same thing I called my sister's mother. Why do you tell me this? I would have you know your husband, she said. It is not fair for you to think him only a monster. The men of the court will tell you that he has done much good for us, and that your death and those of the others are the price we must pay. I wanted to tell you that he was good before, and that his father and I wished for him to be a better man. He is not that man. But every day you live, I will pray to the small gods of my house that he will become that man again. She left me then, and I sat in the garden until the hammer of the sun became so hard that I was forced to seek shade. It still did not matter to me that Lomelkeen had once loved his mother and his people. He shed blood and kept peace, but only the peace was of note. I was not content with that, though I did not wish for some other girl's death to pay the price instead. 7 days in the casa had made me determined to get 7 more, and then more besides. But I had a map of the trade route now, or at least a better one than I did before Lomelkeen's mother told me about her son. Perhaps there was a weakness, a fault I could exploit in him. But I thought also of what she had said at the end, of what all the stories said. He is not that man anymore. 9. I did not go to the thread room that afternoon. Instead, I went through the gardens to see the great statues that Lomelkeen's artists had made. When I saw the statue of his mother again, standing strong and straight on the backs of the lion pair, I stopped. The first day that I saw the statue, I had thought it striking and beautiful. Now, having met the flesh and blood woman herself, I was less sure. The statue seemed harder, and not because it was made of stone. The face was more pointed, the mouth drawn down, and the shoulders broader than they were in life. The worst, though, were the eyes. I had seen the like on the other statues in the casa gardens. It did not seem to matter if they were men, women, or animals. All were carved in an uncomfortable beauty, such that no living creature could duplicate. And all had eyes that were not quite right, staring off into corners as if they expected to find unspoken horrors there. To look too long at any of them was to court madness. "Do you like this one?" said a voice behind me. I turned and saw the guardsman who had given me salt in the desert. He was not dressed in his uniform, the leather armour that deflected blades and arrows and must have been murderous in the sun, but wore linen breeches and a tunic belted at the waist. The carved wooden box hung there next to his eating knife. It is striking, I said to him, but having met the subject, I do not think I like it. I do not like it either, he confessed, coming to stand beside me, and I feel I am allowed to say as much, as it was me that carved it. I choked. I had never met a stone carver before, let alone one as famous as Fir Stone-Touched. My lord, I am sorry, I said. I meant no offence. I am no lord, he said, and I spoke true when I told you I do not like it. I do not like many of the statues I have made for Lomelkeen, even though he does me great honour by putting them on display in such fine settings as his own gardens. I thought you were a guardsman, I said. I wished, not for the first time in my life, that I had my sister's gift with words. I could tell stories well if I learned and practiced their telling, but I was not gifted when it came to making them from whole cloth. I am, he said. I came here to serve Lomelkeen's father right before he died, and then I served Lomelkeen. Carving, then, is entertainment to you, I said. My mother did not approve of idleness, and since my brothers would not lower themselves to sew, many of them whittled bone tools as they sat around the fire at night. It was once, he said. I could make shafts for arrows or tent pegs, nothing finer. It kept my hands busy, you see, on long watches when the night was cold. I looked at the statue. It was a long way from arrows and pegs by the evening's fire to carven rock in the centre of Lomelkeen's garden. What turned you to stone? I asked. His face darkened. I rode with Lomelkeen to fetch a bride, he said. He had forgotten to whom he spoke, and I saw when he remembered, looking at me with a jerk of his head. It is all right, I said. Please continue. Very well, he said. On those rides we number few, and Lomelkeen takes his turn at keeping watch and saddling a horse as if he was a common guard. He spoke to us and we to him, and he watched me carve. He said I had good hands for stone, should I want to. When we returned, I found this great hulk of rock had been quartered to me. I ignored it for a good long while. 6 wives, I think, or maybe 8. I apologize, my lady, but sometimes I do not like to keep track. I could not blame the Casser folk. Lomelkeen's wives numbered in the hundreds, and some had barely survived long enough to make a mark upon the Casser way of life. It was too much to expect them to mourn. Each time we rode out, Lomelkeen watched me carve and told me that I had hands for stone. And each time I did not listen, he said. And then one night I dreamed, more vividly than I have ever done, of a statue that was trapped inside a great block, a statue of Lomelkeen's mother astride a pair of lions. When I woke, my tools were already in my hands, and I was halfway to my feet before I thought about it. I had never carved stone before, and the statue I had seen in my dream was beautiful. I knew it was foolish to think that I could make something of that quality on my first attempt. Even arrow shafts take practice. I did not stop for food or drink, not even when the sun was high above where I worked. My hands cracked and bled, and my throat screamed for water, and I did not stop. I baked in the sun, and I did not care. I thought only of the statue, the one that I would free from the stone. If you separate the ram from the ewes when they are in heat, he will go mad trying to get to them. It does not matter how you tie him down. If he can smell them, he will break all his bones and yours trying to reach them. It sounded as though the madness that had overtaken the carver was the same. At last it was finished. I came out of my trance and Lomelkeen was there. I think he had watched me for some time, though I had been lost in the work and did not see him arrive, he said. He looked at it from top to bottom and declared it perfect. He thanked me for so wonderful a work in the name of his mother, and named me Fair Stone-touched, because when the stone and I worked together, we wrought beauty. He asked what boon I would have from him, and I told him that I was happy as a god. I do not love stone, you see, but sand and sky. I did not wish to leave them. But the other statues, I asked, what about them? Those I carved in fits like madness, he told me. Sometimes Lomelkeen rides with me and then gives me stone. And I always carve it, even though I do not like to, and the results haunt me in every garden in this place. I looked at his hands. They were dark brown from the sun and wind, and calloused from his horse's reins and the shaft of the spear he carried when it was his turn to walk the wall. I saw no cuts or damage. It had been 7 days since I came here, and that would not have been enough time for his hands to heal if the carving madness had overtaken him. Did you carve nothing when I came? I asked him. He smiled, truly smiled for the first time since he had begun to speak to me. I carved arrow shafts, my lady, he said, in the tradition of my father's father's father. I do not trade them for gold and herds as he does. Instead, I use them to buy my way out of chores in the barracks I would rather not do. Then I have free time to come here, to the garden. I am surprised, I said. I would think from what you have said that you would stay as far from your statues as you could. You are right, Lady Bless, he said. But the flowers are lovely, despite the stone. And the fountains are still as wondrous to me as they were the day I got here. For those two beauties, I will overlook my dislike of the statues and of their eyes. I cannot ever seem to fix their eyes. The fountains are magnificent, I agreed, but suddenly I was uncomfortable. Always, it seemed, men would overlook unpleasant things for the sake of those that went well. The statues' eyes for the melodious sounds of the fountain, the deaths of their daughters for the bounty of their trade. There was great beauty in this casa, but there was also great ugliness and fear. I would not be like those men who turned their eyes from one to see the other. I would remember what those things cost. Whether he knew it or not, the carver's hands were moving over the lions' bodies, like he was carving them again. Had he his tools, I've no doubt he would have found some new stone to make it into some dreadful semblance of life. Even so, I could not hate him. He had given me salt in the desert, and he had looked at me when the other guards had avoided my gaze. It was possible that he, who would come here to serve a man he loved, was as much a prisoner as I was, though he was held by different promises. I could not be saved from the death that awaited me inside these stone walls, but he might yet find his freedom in sand and sky. I watched as he lost himself to the quiet music and ever-changing patterns of falling water. May your hands find what you love, I whispered, too softly for any but my small gods to hear. May your work not frighten you, but bring you joy instead, and may it bring joy to others. May you carve for yourself and not for Lomelkeen. I left him there, with his hands on the flanks of the lions he disliked and his eyes on the falling water. As I came close to the garden's arch, I heard a rustle in the low shrubs and knew that one of the serving girls had watched us as we spoke. My marriage might be unconventional and as yet unconsummated, but it seemed that at least my attendants were certain to mind me. I would not be left unchaperoned with another man, not even one as respected as Fair Stone-touched. Lomelkeen had given him that name, he said. I wondered what his name had been before, if he had had one, or if the sun had baked it from his mind the day he carved Lomelkeen's mother. 10. On the 10th morning, when I woke alone in my comfortable room and was not dead, I was not surprised. A chill ran through my blood, and the walls closed in around me. I had seen the strange power ebb and flow between Lomelkeen's hands and mine. I suspected that my inevitable death would not be the result of poison, nor a blade, nor his fingers crushing my windpipe. There was something at work here that I did not understand. Some wicked small god of Lomelkeen's family, or perhaps the demon from the stories played upon our linked fingers. That would be my end. I could not pray to the small god my sister had made of me. The words stuck in my throat. But I could pray as I always had, to the bones of our father's father's father, even though they were very far away. I breathed deep, as my mother had taught me, and drew the picture of clear blue sky and calm brown sand in my mind. Before, when my sister and I had done this, we had held hands and pinched each other to keep from giggling. We did not lack piety by any means, but we were children, and children will find laughter wherever they can. My mother had frowned, but my sister's mother smiled with us. The small gods hear of so many sad things, so many hopeless wants and desires, she said. Let them hear laughter for a time. I did not laugh now, and clouds roiled through the desert in my mind. In vain I tried to call the blue sky into focus, but it would not come, and the smooth sand was punctured in many places by sharp rock and by bushes with thorns so long they would pierce a lamb's heart if the creature stumbled into them. I opened my eyes and lamented my failure. Perhaps I really was too far away from the places of my dead to pray. On the top of the wooden chest in the corner of the room, there lay folded the dish dasher that my sister and I had made, the one that someone had brought to me when I wished for it. I rose and crossed the room to get it, bare feet used to rug-covered marble floors at last. Holding it in my hands, I returned to my seat on the bed and closed my eyes once more. This time, I did not call the desert. Instead, I saw my sister's hands as we worked the embroidery into the fine fabric. I heard her voice whispering in my ear, and there was something more, something else deeper in the vision. I let go of the focus on my breathing and fell into it. It was a regular sound, rhythmic and comforting. It was the loom on which the cloth had been made. I did not know who had crafted the cloth. Our father had brought it with him when he returned with the caravan, but I could feel her hands on the shuttle, the way her fingers picked apart the strings of the warp to make a pattern for the weft. The cloth of my dish dasher had been of deepest purple, a mark of our father's wealth. The weaving this time was the brightest orange, with fine gold thread added as an accent every half handspan or so. Though the colour was less rich, the pattern and weight of the fabric made it priceless. This would dress a queen. I felt the strength of the weaving and called it towards myself. I saw orange fire run from the fabric to my hands, and though the colour was not bleached from the cloth, I felt stronger, calmer. I thought I could call the blue sky desert now, but found I no longer needed it. When I opened my eyes, a serving girl was kneeling at the foot of my bed. I had not seen her before and wished there might be some consistency in the women who came into my rooms. She had not interrupted me, and I was glad of it. Her eyes were wide, but I did not know the reason until I looked down at my hands, still holding the dish dasher. It was pale in the sunlight of my room, but undeniable nonetheless. the copper-coloured glow that enveloped my hands and the dark purple silk. Alarmed, I opened my fingers and the dishwasher fell, taking that strange light with it. "Lady bless," breathed the girl, and I thought she might fully genuflect before me. At least she did not flee in fear. "Pay no mind to it," I said to her. "The small gods show favour in ways we cannot always understand." "Yes, Lady bless," she said, but it was clear that she did not think the light was from a small god any more than I did. She took a breath and stood. "My lord will have a grand feast tonight," she said, as though nothing had happened. "There is a star shower, and he has called upon skeptics and priests to debate the matter. He bids you to come, else he will not see you." I wondered if that meant I was safe tonight. If I did not go, Lomelkeen would not see me and could not kill me. If I went, he would surely not kill me in front of the others. I felt that chill again, as when I had awoken, but it was less because of the copper fire I had called to myself. Lomelkeen would not kill me with his hands. I was sure of it. There was some strange power to him, even as there was some strange power to me, and I would not learn of it hiding in my room or from the women as they crafted. "I will go," I told her, and she smiled at me. She helped me to dress then, in a light shift for the morning, as I would soon begin preparing for what was to come. I broke my fast with flatbread and oil and then was taken away to the baths. The preparations were even more elaborate than they had been for my wedding night, presumably because this occasion called for a more involved hairstyle than I had been required on that evening. I sat for hours as I was scrubbed, pumiced, hennaed, plaited and coiled. It was warm, and I could have drifted into the weaving trance, or even called up the blue sky desert, but I was concerned that if I made the attempt, that strange light would reappear. I did not wish to startle my attendants. Instead, I sat and listened to their talk. "Last year, my lord only called upon the skeptics," the henna mistress said, dark brown hands working patterns on my skin. "The priests were angry, but of course they could say nothing about it." "The skeptics said that the stars are not small gods, but rock and fire," said the girl whose job it was to pick the bath salts. "Who lights a fire hot enough to burn rock, then?" said the henna mistress. "And how does it stay aflame in the sky with no one to tend it?" "I am sure the skeptics have an answer," the girl said. "Of course they do." The henna mistress finished with my arms and began to comb the dye into my hair, for the scent, not the colour. "But in hearing their answers and the answers from the priests, we see a clearer picture of the sky." They continued to argue as they worked on my hair, and I withdrew into my thoughts in spite of my determination otherwise. We did not have skeptics in my father tents. They lived only in the city and in some of the larger villages. Unlike priests who can work alone, skeptics require the company of their fellows so that they can debate the great questions they have set themselves to. Small villages and encampments can spare folks to tend to the bones of the dead and the altars of the small gods, but they cannot always spare a man to do nothing but think, no matter how great his thoughts. I had never met a skeptic, and tonight I would. I was unfamiliar with what exactly was accorded to me by my rank. While the servants deferred to me, and fear Stone-touched had been respectful, I was unsure if I could command. If I spoke to a skeptic, he would likely disregard me as a simple tent-born girl, come to die at Lomelkeen's hand as all the others before me had done. Perhaps my continued life would be interesting enough to garner me the conversation I required. I wished to ask about the power of small gods, if any knew how far their power reached. I knew the priest's answer already because I had had it from my mother, but now I wanted another opinion. When my hair was done to satisfaction, the women brought me fruit to eat and took some time to rest before the final steps of my decoration. I learned how to sit with the mass of coiled braids upon my head and how to handle a cup without ruining the tattoos on my fingers and wrists. The henna mistress watched me closely and then nodded her approval. "Do not worry overmuch about courtly manners tonight, Lady Bless," she said, her voice low and close to my ear. "It will be torchlight only and standing to eat. With luck, all eyes will be upon the stars." "With luck," I said, and smiled. She smiled back, uncertainly at first, but then a true smile when she saw that I was not afraid. At last it grew dark and it was time to dress for dinner. The dressing mistress cut me out of the shift I wore because they could not pull it over my head. A new one was brought with lacing in the back and they tied me into it. "This is a dish-dasher for standing," the dressing mistress said to me. "You must not sit unless one of your own attendants is close by to help you stand again. It will not fall apart while you stand, but if you bend, you will loosen the fastenings, and then they will not hold while you move again." They brought out the garment. I could not keep the surprise from my face. The light cast by the oil lamps flickered, but shone brighter than the tallow candles we used in the tents. It was not murky or dim, because the tiles in the bathing rooms reflected the light cast by the lamps and magnified it so that it was as bright as it had been during the day. There was no mistaking what I saw, though I blinked several times to make sure I had not strayed into a vision. The fabric was as orange as fire, and woven through with gold, so that it, like the tiles, glimmered in the lamplight. The heavy silk whispered as the dressing mistress wrapped it around me, stopping now and then to do the fastenings while her assistants held the cloth in place. Even the pattern in the warp matched the vision I had seen. "It was made especially for your colouring, Lady Bless," the dressing mistress said. She had clearly mistaken the cause of my awe. "We had not heard about the gold thread, though. That was a surprise to all." "Indeed," I said, carefully running one finger across the fabric. It rippled, variations in colour running over the top of it like wispy clouds through a hot summer sky, but much more brilliant to look at. "You will even stand out in the dark," said the henna mistress. "Perhaps some eyes will stray from the stars after all." I stood quietly as they finished, their excitement about the dish-dasher quelling the last of their fears that I would die tonight. I no longer had that fear either, but a new one was growing in its place. I still wished to speak to a skeptic, but now I would have to be even more careful about what I said. I had never heard of a person who dreamed the future while they still lived. Sometimes a small god gave guidance, but it was always vague. My vision had been strikingly specific. I closed my eyes and once again reached for that blue sky desert, as I had so many times before I had come to this place. It came as soon as I bade it, but it was different this time than it had been before. The sky was still a brilliant blue, and the sand a smooth brown, but it was no longer unadorned. I could see, as I had never seen before, how the sky was woven together, how the sand was made a part of the pattern, and how the two pieces were joined at the hem along the far horizon. My heart sped up, and I thought at first that I was afraid. But then I opened my eyes, and I saw how the woman looked at me, like I was a queen in truth. And I knew that it was not fear I felt, rushing along with the blood through my veins. Third. Lomelkeen knew her well, that first one. He knew what she looked like, her scent, the shape of her smile. He remembered her for a long time because he loved her. I remembered her because I stole her. She was shorter than Lomelkeen was, and her face was lit with joy all throughout the wedding ceremony and the feast that followed. The people did not know what was to come, not yet. They had not even begun to suspect. All they knew was that Lomelkeen was happy to wed at last, and their lands were slowly recovering from misrule. They did not yet understand that there would be a price. Lomelkeen knew, of course, and he screamed and raged, but he could do nothing to stop me. When the food was eaten and the songs were sung, they put Lomelkeen and his bride to bed in a silk-hung room with wide windows for the moonlight. Lomelkeen stood in the pale space on the floor, and she came to him, dark hair bleeding colour under the silver glow. The night air was desert cool, but her lips on his were warm. For a moment, Lomelkeen was overcome. He stopped his voiceless screams at her touch, warmed by her kiss. When I tightened his hands on her slim waist, he remembered and screamed anew. I was clumsy that first night. The cold light worked too quickly, and she was too in love with the man she thought she had married. It would take me time and several more wives to refine my methods. I think, had I better been able to control myself, she might have lived to see the next day. She might have lived to see the next 10. I would learn in the nights to come that fear burned swiftly, but love burned strong. Both were useful, which was fortunate, because soon enough no one loved Lomelkeen any more. None of that mattered that night. I took what I required from her and made Lomelkeen watch as she shriveled and wilted under his hands. Her dark hair turned grey, then silver, and finally white. Her eyes lost their spirited glow and became dull things within her skull. Her skin drew tight across her bones and then sagged as her bones failed within her. My only real complaint was that she never screamed, but Lomelkeen did enough of that for both of them. In the morning, when the serving girls woke Lomelkeen, it was with cries of fear and distress at the sight of the thing with which I shared his marriage bed. I feigned distress as well, and did so good a job at it that I was believed. She was buried, and I pretended to mourn even while the lands prospered. But a lord cannot be unwed, and before long the council begged Lomelkeen to set aside his supposed grief and marry again. They did not have to beg very hard. The second wedding was much the same as were the ones that followed it. If there were rumblings that Lomelkeen should not wed again, they were as quiet as the footfalls of a wild dog hunting in the desert. Time passed, and girls died, and eventually there were too many for even the skeptics to explain away. But the land prospered, and there was peace, and Lomelkeen asked again to be married. The men of the council decided then the sort of girls to sacrifice, and the law was handed down. I cared not for the laws and rules of Lomelkeen's council. I cared only for the strength of the power I took from his wives as they came to his bed, and for the pain I caused to the body I had taken. In time he twisted. His agony lessened and became a dull thing that I could barely provoke. My power did not wane, however, and I found I could still taunt him with the fragility of our victims. And so we continued, together.
What?
You all okay?
I kind of want to shout more, but also I'm aware that you have a system.
I've got a system, and the next chapter is like a long one. So we'll have 3 chapters tomorrow night, and it's going to be a fairly chunky session. How you doing? How y'all doing? Everyone's very quiet. I find it very unsettling when I finish and everyone is just totally quiet.
Oh,
I might have missed something. Who was the voice at the end there? Is that the woman who's
That's
married.
That's the demon.
That's
Demon inside.
the demon.
Malkeen.
That's Lomelkeen or whatever has taken over Lomelkeen.
Ah, okay.
The thing he met in the desert.
It was the first opening character, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the chapters that are labelled like first, second, third, etc., are from the demon or whatever it is.
Right.
And like the chapters that are just have like normal numbers are the protagonist.
Right. Okay. That's good. Thank you.
I love that we
I
still
really
don't.
want to.
No.
I'm just a sensational geek and think that's a really awesome way to do it. Like to keep it super clear.
Yeah. So it's like the ones that are her perspective are labelled like like 1, 2, 3, and the ones that are from the demon's perspective are labelled in Roman numerals. So I thought that probably doing like first, second, third would be the clearest way, rather than like I.
I like it a lot.
Do we have notes, Gordon?
Of course.
Yay!
I have many notes. Although before notes, the things that I really just randomly liked in this one, of which there are many, I love the henna stuff going on. It's really cool, and also the skeptics. I just like the idea of them as a thing, and yeah, I hope there are going to be more of them, and both the joy of skeptics and slagging them off, which is great.
I totally love a job as a skeptic.
I think
Basically, like a natural philosopher, right?
essentially, yeah.
They're a branch of philosophers, aren't they? Skeptics are a branch of philosophers.
Are they?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the skeptics.
That's cool.
Yeah. I thought they were Greek, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The skeptics and the cynics used to always have fights with each other.
In the
And
street.
the Epicureans.
So, we should probably stop the recording before. Do we stop the recording before Gordon's notes? Before we do stop the recording, Mike, would you like a birthday poem, sweetie, or are you lurking subtly under the radar? And I'll once more rewind and not point you out to the class.
Kind of lurking but listening. Whatever everyone else likes, I guess. I'll leave it up to popular vote.
What
What a poet. Okay, well, how about Gordon, you start on your notes, and I will have a little look through for a nice poem.
Yep, that works.
Cool.
Okay.
Go for it.
So, book club. It feels weird with the recording still on, so I'm going to edit the notes so that I'm not saying anything that on YouTube will be.
Hold on, I can turn it off. We can say goodbye to the catch-up crew. Goodbye, catch-up crew.
Bye, catch-up crew.
Bye, catch-up crew.
I am waving, I swear.